So welcome. My name is Mardana. I'm a care manager here at Active Aging for our Family Caregiver Support Program. I'm also the facilitator for the support group. We have it here the fourth Monday of every month from 2 to 3. This month we are having Jill Curtis as our speaker. So we welcome you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
It's always great to come down.
And I want to thank Leanne from Guardian Elder Care for providing our refreshments today. So I want to do my little giveaway first. So
Okay.
go pick a name.
Great. You can't, even if you win, you can't leave yet. You got to stay for the whole program. We're doing this wrong. No. Let's see, who's our winner? Rhonda? Yay! Congratulations.
Best lunch hour I've ever had.
Yeah, there you go. Well, thanks for sharing it with us, your lunch hour. Absolutely. Well, hello, everyone. I recognize some faces and some new faces. So my name is Jill Curtis. I live in Corey, so I'm a little country bumpkin. And but you won't hold that. Oh, thank you. I thought I'd start off with a location joke instead of a football joke because it's too early to get started on the football stuff yet. So, but just to let you know a little bit about me, my background is social work, and I have been a social worker working only with our aging population, and that's me because that's one thing we all have in common is that we all age. Believe it or not, for about it's been almost 20 years that I've been working only with aging, which means I started when I was 2.
Wow, you're smart.
Thank you. I know. I was just a baby. No, I know. It's always hard for a social worker to do a math joke. Hello. So thank you for laughing at my math joke. But and Leanne's daughter's going into that too, so we can kind of all relate. Well, one of the things, my background, like I said, social work, and I've been working with aging. I did a lot of time in hospital settings, home health, and hospice. And then most recently, I was in long-term care for about 9 years. So I've seen the entire spectrum of aging, especially those affected with Alzheimer's and different types of dementia. So I want to make this more of a learning event for us where I don't want you to feel that we have to wait till the end to ask your questions. I find that as we're moving through this, it's just easier to talk about it right then. Because chances are whoever else is listening probably has the same question at the same time too. So please just feel free to make this really loose and laid back. So one of the things I think that stands out to me the most is just by our introduction, you saw Mardana from Aging, I'm from Alzheimer's, you got a chance to meet Leanne from Guardian. There's 3 providers already in this room to help. And what that shows me is, and we talk about this all the time, is care planning. Who is our care team? Knowing that we cannot get through this disease alone. And the professionals, we know that, and we want you to know that too, that we wouldn't be able to get through without each other, and you can't get through this alone either. And so that's why I'm so thankful that Mardana is here and the aging office lets us use their space for our family support groups so that you are not alone through this, and those of you. So if you feel comfortable, I just would like to know, are you currently providing care right now for a loved one? Are you?
My dad.
Okay, and are you?
My mom's at Juniper.
Mom's at Juniper. Okay. So you have definitely, and you folks are.
Her sister's up there, Stutters.
Okay. So yes, you're all somewhere. Whether you're doing it right now or you are, trusting an agency or a provider. Yeah. Well, hi everybody from Aging. Welcome. It's nice to see everyone. Real subtle entry, ladies. No, it would have been good if the big mouth in front hadn't noticed, but we were just talking about the importance of community and not going through this disease alone. So it's wonderful. This group that just showed up are all of the support staff for Crawford County that offer you help through this journey. So without getting your introductions, but so today Whoa, this is my favorite program to do, is communication. So try to keep me off the ceiling, okay? Absolutely. Because one of the things we need to talk about, and those we obviously are all in all different stages of this disease, is where our loved ones are, but we're going to talk about those changes so that we know, unfortunately, this disease is progressive. So there is going to be change. It's just a matter of when and how. And we're going to talk about things that are going to contribute to that decline of the disease. We're going to talk about how they're communicating to us. Because what we're doing right now is easy, but we lose that, don't we? Verbal. And how are we going to continue to communicate when we can no longer do this, which is what we've known from what? Infancy. First thing we want our kids to do? Say mama, say dada. We eventually lose that ability. How are we going to keep connected when we can't do that? And how are we going to do that, especially, my passion also is at the end stage. How do we keep connecting even when it feels like they're no longer able to connect with us? So, would you have stayed today if when you walked through the door, I was standing like this, tapping my toe, rolling my eyes, oh, here comes another family? Would you have liked that?
I would noticed it.
You'd have noticed it, all right. You'd say, who's this yahoo up there talking? Yeah, we are, that's communication, isn't it? I have to say, one thing I know, not only do we talk by body language, but we also, how many of us used to change our behavior immediately when our dad or our mom would say something to us? Or our grandparents, we know that. How about this one? Who's got teenagers? The other that I was abruptly introduced that I had forgotten about is how loud we talk. Clearly, I'm not mic'd. I've been blessed with this big mouth. When I worked in the nursing facility, I walked into the room one day to check on one of my gentlemen that had just arrived for rehab. And I knocked on the door and I said, well, hello, welcome. And he jumped out of his skin and said, good grief, I'm here for a knee replacement. I'm not deaf. And I thought, ooh, note to self, he is right. It's kind of like when you're talking to someone from a foreign language and you keep talking louder, thinking that that's going to make them understand what we're saying. No. All different types of communication. See, she's shutting the door because I've got a big mouth. Sorry. But we have to remember all different parts of communication. And again, as we move through this disease, we already know that our loved one is experiencing communication challenges. So what they may have been able to really understand really well at one point may not be as easy anymore. So looking at, years ago, we used to think there were 7 stages of the disease. I don't know if anyone remembers that. There was like 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way through 7. And what we realize now is that folks were kind of trying to pigeonhole their loved one into those, specifics, and it just was too difficult. And what we really know now is that there's the 3 stages: early, middle, late, and mild, moderate, and severe. So what we know in the early stages is that our loved ones are still quite able to tell us, boy, I'm having a tough day. Oh my gosh, I can see, we work so much with early stage folks that are just getting diagnosed, and there's one particular lady that comes into our office just to see, they keep in touch with us regularly, and I said to her, how are you today, Chris? And she said, those words, they're right there. But I just can't get them. That's early stage. She knows. She's well aware enough to know that something's going on. is she is definitely able to make choices about what she wants as she moves through this disease. She's already shared with her husband, it's okay for me to go to a home. I don't expect you. That wasn't part of the deal. And she's able to share that with him, even in the early stages of the disease. Now, sometimes though, our wires do get crossed. And so there may be some misinterpretation of what's happening, or just a lot of, that's when we might start noticing some of those blank stares. And I'm knowing, so many of us have seen our loved ones. Unfortunately, sometimes we see these things happening, but we don't know what that is. Because so many times in our life, we know this, we think that's a normal part of aging. Oh, she's getting older. And one of the biggest things that I am very adamant about as the association is knowing that these symptoms of dementia are not a normal part of aging. And when we start experiencing these symptoms, something's going on. It doesn't necessarily mean it's Alzheimer's. Some of these symptoms could be depression. Some of these symptoms could be uncontrolled hypertension, thyroid, maybe a medication interaction. But it's important to be aware that these are not a normal part of aging. And so when things like this start happening, maybe it is stress. That's why I can't remember anything. I can't wait for school to start. But if we don't have a reason, if we don't have a stressor that's causing that, we better go try to figure out what's going on. So then in that middle stage, our loved ones are still able to use those basic sentences. But you know what? We might want to get rid of the to part, the and, where we would say, why don't you get dressed? We're going to go to church. And maybe all they hear is we're going to go to church. And they're already in the car because they're going to church, but they're still in their pajamas. They missed that first part. Let's get dressed. So we may have to start breaking up those sentences into smaller tasks. And then relying more on our tone and our facial expressions and our body language. So those days where they're not able to understand when I say, Mom, you need to drink more water. But if I do this with you, and we raise a glass and we cheer, and we model that behavior. I had a gentleman one time who said, boy, I just don't understand my wife, her hygiene has gotten so poor. And she used to just have the most beautiful smile, and her teeth were always so clean, and her breath was fresh. And he says, I don't know what she's doing in there. What's she doing in the bathroom? I said, well, what is she doing in the bathroom? And he says, I don't know, I've never paid attention. And I said, well, let's go, you do that. That's your homework. I want you to go stand by the door and listen when she's in there. She never turned the water on. It was overwhelming. And if you think about the number of steps it takes to brush your teeth, you've got to get the toothbrush, get the toothpaste, turn the water on. But turning on the water might mean 2 faucets, not 1. Or maybe it's so shiny I got distracted and I don't know which button is which, and maybe now I'm standing over by the toilet because that's silver and the faucets are silver to the sink, and I don't know which is which. So what was happening was that gentleman, he said she can't do it by herself anymore. So what we did was we worked on a care plan, and we figured out, okay, if we visually prompt her, so instead of putting the toothbrush and toothpaste in the drawer, he left it on the counter for a visual reminder. And that worked for a little while. But then eventually, what do I do with this? So it really got, so a couple that had never had any time together in the bathroom, now he was modeling they would do together. They would brush their teeth together. He would pick up his toothbrush, she would pick up hers. He would put the toothpaste on, she would do it. And then they would stand there and brush their teeth in the mirror, looking at each other and making cute, fun faces. And that's how they bonded. So you can see that progression, but you can also see how she was relying on his body language, his modeling of behavior to get them to do what we want them to do. They're still going to need some type of meaningful activity. We know communication also ties in with behaviors. We know that if our loved one becomes anxious or agitated or restless or is pacing and searching many, many times, they're bored. So it looks like a behavior, but it's not. They need something to do. They need purposeful engagement, and that is so important through all stages of the disease. And then in that late stage that we talk about, certainly they still are going to, our loved one knows those songs, because remember, this disease affects our short-term memory, not that long-term memory. So those verses, those songs, those special scriptures are still there. And even if they're not able to maybe formulate the words, they're still going to recognize the cadence and that familiarity of that. And then using our senses. You know, if something is, think about like when one of our parts becomes dull, it almost seems like other parts become alive. And that is so true as this disease progresses. And we have the ability, talk is just one of our senses. We can still hear, we can still smell, we can still touch. And we're going to talk about that too. So again, those changes in the early stage, we're going to notice several of these. And you know what else? That withdrawing from conversation and difficult problems with, solving problems and managing a checkbook. I'm going back again to our 10 signs, because so many times these are happening and people don't realize that something is happening, that this is a disease process and we need to get to the doctor and find out what's going on. This is why we start seeing those blank stares. And if it's too hard, if there's too much going on, I just might not join in anymore. I'm just gonna stay home. I'm not gonna go to senior center anymore because I don't know what they're talking about. Or I can't, they go so fast, they talk so fast that I can't, by the time I get my word together and I say something, Snotty Carol's gonna say, well, we just talked about that 10 minutes ago. And I hate to say that, but it happens. I've already told you 5 times what Trump is. I can't remember what Trump is. I'm not gonna go anymore.
Communicating in the early stages of dementia with the person with the disease is important. At that time, you still have language as a tool. So you can learn things about what they might prefer as the disease progresses. For example, as the disease progresses, a person might have difficulty finding words. Caregivers often struggle to know what to do in that moment. Early on in the disease, you can ask. You can say, if you ever have trouble coming up with a word, would you rather that I jump in and give you the word, or do you want me to wait and allow you some time so you can find it on your own?
And that is a great way, again, to, like we talked about at the very beginning, is, honoring their wishes and keeping them and, feeling like they're part of the discussion. Sometimes, though, That's gonna change. You know, I used to do that all the time, and you know, sometimes you would just get, I'm getting it, you know, and it would agitate them, and then sometimes they would change their mind. So you know, so just be aware as the disease progresses, how they want to be responded to may change as well. So, but it is nice to ask, how would you like to communicate? Sometimes that telephone is a blessing, and sometimes it is a curse. And you're just gonna have to kind of pick, you know, and lately I've been getting a lot of questions about Skype and Google chatting and things like that, and what in the early stages, if it's not causing paranoia, you know, or delusions, you know, then it's okay, and they can still figure out, you know, like have you seen that commercial now for Alexa, where it's, you know, it's voice activated, and then all of a sudden there's their family, their picture, which is great in the early stages, but I can see maybe middle to late that might increase some hallucinations and agitation, because it's like, well, there's her head, but where's her body? You know, we can wrap our mind around that, but that concrete isn't. So again, just kind of knowing how they're doing with the disease as they progress. So one of the things to avoid making assumptions, I find sometimes what they're saying, because again, not always what they're saying and what they're doing always match up. So I think sometimes we automatically maybe are assuming, you know, when our loved one looks angry, that they are angry, and very well what they may be feeling at that moment is sadness, but it's just not being communicated effectively because this disease is impacting that. So one of the things that we always talk about in our behavior program is validating, is offering, boy, you look sad today. And then if they say, well, no, I'm not sad, I'm mad. Oh, okay. That's where we are then, because sometimes that doesn't look the same. Moving into that middle stage, unfortunately, this is right around where most of our loved ones are getting diagnosed. We're missing that early stage because, again, like I said, it's our stigma. We think, oh, it's a normal part of aging, and it's not. So we wait until we get to these symptoms, and then these are the symptoms that start getting families thinking, oh, maybe something's going on. And we're already into this middle stage, unfortunately. This is where we're, you know, using that same word or that same question or that same phrase. And maybe this didn't bother you until this is now happening 6 times before lunch. Those new words, speaking less frequently, again, that inability to formulate those words, to put together that thought is becoming more and more difficult, so that's why we're not doing that. And if I can't tell you that I have to go to the bathroom, I'm going to start doing this. And so, am I taking off my clothes because I want to be an exhibitionist? No. I'm taking off my clothes because I have to pee and I can't tell you. And every door here looks the same. I don't know which one's the bathroom. So I'm just gonna go wherever because I can't figure it out. We're gonna talk about that next. So communicating through behavior. Yeah. If I took off my shirt right now, or I should say, it's chilly in here now, it feels good that we've been inside, so what if I start grabbing my sweaters and layering? Oh, she's, you know, something's wrong. She clearly thinks, no, I'm responding to the temperature because I don't know how to say, boy, is it cold in here. Could somebody do something with the air conditioning? So they're going to communicate through behavior.
I would advise couples, and I usually do advise the caregiver who comes to the group and is caring for a spouse that you take your time. Always count to 3 before you respond, because it gives you time to think about your answer and what's going on. Generally, in a marital dispute, it's quick. It's back and forth. You're quick to give an answer. When they've been diagnosed, to sit back and say, okay, you're supposed to be the one that's reasonable here. Let's change how we do this, because there's only one thing you can control, and that's you. You cannot control them and their process.
That is hard. It's easier said than done. Very, very much. So, one of the things that I always like to remind our families, because I think sometimes, especially in the middle stage, sometimes there's those moments where we think, do they know what they're doing? Are they purposely starting to agitate me by doing that over and over and over again? Or how many times, I told her 16 times today that we're going to the doctor at 3 p.m. I've written it down. I've put it in their pocket. I've put it on the calendar. I've put it in her little change purse. I think we need reminded that this is a disease, that Alzheimer's, and I'm talking right now about Alzheimer's, it is a progressive degenerative neurologic disease. And the hallmarks of what makes Alzheimer's so tricky are these plaques and these tangles, these beta amyloid and these tau proteins that we all have in ourselves, but for some reason in Alzheimer's patients, these plaques and these tangles, they conglomerate around those nerve endings in our brains, those billions of neurons. And they're not able to be rid. They need to be gone. Those plaques and tangles need to be eradicated, and some reason that's shutting down in these folks. And we need those neurons to connect. We need those healthy signals and that transaction where I say, hi there, and you're thinking, oh, she's saying hi to me. And then it's processing, and that means I better say something back to her. If these plaques and these tangles are inhibiting that, then yeah, that's exactly what. We're not going to get that answer. And again, the other piece that I like to remind folks is that the first place that this starts is with language and memory. And that is exactly why we have focused on these two pieces. This is a healthy brain, which weighs about 3 pounds. And our patient with Alzheimer's, our family member, ends up with a 1 pound brain. 3, 1, 2/3 of the brain is atrophied, lost, cell death, because of this inability for life to continue with those plaques, those tangles, those eroding those neurons. And look at the deficit. Look at the memory. That's why they don't remember who their son, who their grandson, that they just took their pill, that they already paid their bills, that you don't turn left at that certain street that they've been on. The language. This is why I just can't get it out. That's why Chris says to me, Jill, I can see those words hanging, but I can't reach them. So this is, again, I think it's so easy because we can't see this. We can see other diseases. We can see cancer. We can see the hair loss. We can see fractures. We can see those other illnesses, but this illness is hiding inside here, and they look so normal until this stage when we start seeing those looks, those blank stares that are telling us there is something happening. There is a brain disease happening in my loved one. So we need to, again, one of the other pieces that we forget about is that our vision is affected, our loved one's vision, so definitely peripheral vision. So we want to always come to the front and making sure that they see us and that they know that we are addressing them. Pay attention to your tone, and maybe your volume. Avoid criticizing and correcting and arguing, because this, again, is proof that they are no longer in the same reality, perhaps at times, than we are. Their reality is now our reality. And the sooner that we can, the other thing too that I like to remind folks is validating. And just again saying, boy, I hear you. That must be hard. And I think it's just, think about normal customer service. You can automatically decrease someone's agitation with a simple, I am sorry that happened. Oh. Think about a complaint that you've had at a restaurant. If they say to you immediately, I'm sorry, it just brings you down. Okay, all right, I'm not going to be as angry as maybe now as I would have been.
She could sense my frustration, because occasionally I would lose my patience and I would bark at her. Why are you asking me that question again? I just answered that question 2 minutes ago. And then she would get frustrated because, she was very old school, and she's like, don't disrespect me, and I didn't ask you that question 2 minutes ago. It's a new question. So phase 2 of our relationship was like, okay, that's a new question. I'll answer it again.
And she's smiling. She's being recorded. But that's not that easy, is it? Those of us that had to answer those 6, 7, 8 times. Again, there we are. There's our connecting and joining that person's reality. We're assessing their needs. I'm providing an answer, responding to the emotion behind the statement. Let's break that down. I'm going to give you an example. When I worked in long-term care, one of my favorite ladies, she was always camped out right in the front door, right in front of the glass where she could see everything that was going on. She was about this big around, and the nurses, I love my nursing friends, but social work and nursing, we look at things differently sometimes, and how are we going to do this? So, it's time for her to eat. She has to eat. She's very thin. We're worried about her weight, her caloric intake, blah, blah, blah. So what are they going to do? They're in a hurry. They're going to go down. They come up behind her and they try to turn her wheelchair because they want to take her to the dining room because it's time for her to eat because she's this big around. Okay. Well, guess what? This went on for about 10 minutes. About 6 different staff tried to get her down to the dining room. And each time, those little skinny legs just dug right in, and it's amazing how strong they are for not having any meat on their bones. And so I was listening, and finally I couldn't stand it anymore. Now, I'm not saying I'm the end-all be-all, because trust me, I've done millions of things, and I've been clobbered too. You just never know. But in this case, I thought, I'm fresh. I'm going to approach Eileen differently. So I went around in front of her. I got down on her level and I said, Eileen, you sound angry. Darn tootin' I'm angry. I said, well, what's wrong? What can I do to help you? Well, you see that dog up there? That dog's been up there for a week, and not one of these fat has taken the time to feed that dog. They're all worried about themselves, but no one's feeding that dog. I thought, what is she talking about? So I look at her level, and I see there's a fire hydrant out there. That fire hydrant hadn't been fed in a week. So I said, are you hungry? Yes, I'm hungry, but I'm not eating until that dog eats. Okay, so I went out, and she's watching me like a hawk. And she's watching me the whole way up the driveway, and I put that little bowl down, and I'm waving at her, and I come back in and I said, he was hungry. And she says, so am I. Let's go. Now, and I turned her around, and into the dining room we went. Again, not always going to happen, not always going to work. But the key piece that I love about that is it ties in perfectly with this. We're connecting. You look angry. Darn tootin' I'm angry. Connected. Joined her reality. What would have happened if I would have said, that's not a dog, it's a fire hydrant? We could have sat there and debated that till the cows came home, truly. And what would that do? Increase her agitation. What's going to end up happening in some cases, maybe by the time I finally get her in there, they've stopped serving. Maybe she doesn't like to be in her room, so maybe she will only eat in the dining room. So now I have to change her environment. Who knows? I assessed her needs. She was hungry, but she was worried. She said she would eat after the dog ate. I let her know I hear her concerns. I provided a brief answer. Oh, so you'll eat if the dog eats? Yeah, okay. And then the emotions behind the statement. So she really wasn't trying to pick a fight or be incorrigible or difficult or aggressive or non-compliant. She wasn't trying to do that. She just needed to know that something else was going to happen before she could meet her needs. So you can see why I love that scenario. Short and basic sentences, speaking slow, clearly, one person. That's the other thing. Sometimes you get 2 or 3 people trying to answer and address the situation, and that increases stimulation, increases agitation. And all of a sudden, it's now kind of turning into a pick-on party, 3-on-1. And we know what that's like. That's scary. Limit those distractions. So we're telling everybody to go away. Maybe we need to either turn up the lights so that they can see us a little bit better. That's another key piece. Many of you have probably heard about sundowning, and that starts happening around this time. Years ago, we used to think, oh, sundowning, they get agitated, so we need to turn the lights down, lower the stim, it'll make them feel better. Now we know that that is not accurate. What's happening when folks are sundowning, it's that time of day and their vision is being impaired. They want to be able to see so we have to now turn the lights up because we want to be able to continue to do what we were doing. So those distractions sometimes can be light, doesn't always necessarily need to be noise. It could be heat, temperature. That person that's taking off her clothes may be hot. She may not just be running around because she wants to. And then again, trying to offer those guesses. Providing visual cues. You know, I had a lady, she was very proper, and I was doing an assessment with her in her home, and she said, my husband is urinating in the wrong room. Okay, well, I haven't used urination since I don't know when, college, I think. And so she says, and this is a perfect thank you for being in here, Mardana. This is perfect. This was their bathroom. This was their linen closet. And guess where he always was urinating? Why, yes, in the linen closet. So I said to her, that's easy. Let's open that door. Sometimes that visual cue of seeing that toilet will prompt him to know that's where he should go in and urinate. I can't have the door open. And anyone coming in and seeing my toilet? I said, okay, plan B. Let's do another visual cue. Let's do a picture of a commode. We can get, clip art has those cute little toilets with a little face on it. So you're peeing on somebody if you want. You know, sometimes guys like something to aim at. I don't know. I have brothers. I know this. Let's put a picture of a toilet on the door. I can't have a picture of a toilet on my door. And I said, okay, then keep cleaning up the pee. What we have to go where they are. What's going to make this easier on them? I had a lady, this was a great, and it's such a great tip. She's been using the LED lights to put around her commode at night for her mom and her dad, so that they have somewhere to kind of aim for. And then also it's been helping, I've had some other folks using it on the edge of their bed rails to try to help eliminate falls when their mom's coming back from the bathroom at night, just so that they can kind of see where they're going. So putting answers into your questions. Boy, oh boy, I had a lady last week, great story. She came into the office for a group that I was doing, and she said, my 22-year-old son gets it and I don't. And I said, well, what happened? And she says, well, we went to mom's restaurant. We went to her favorite restaurant, and I proceeded to read the menu to her. So there's, you know what menus look like these days. There's like 33 things to choose from. And mom started getting a little agitated. And her 22-year-old son literally took the menu from his mother and said, Grandma, I remember how much you love the pork chops here. Why don't we all have pork chops today? And she said, yes. I think he saved her from her own daughter. But putting answers into questions. Would you like to wear blue today or red today? You're still giving them a choice. You're still allowing them to contribute to their day-to-day activity. And then eventually, if that becomes too difficult, Mom, you look so pretty in red. Let's wear red today. And that's how we can phrase that. Turning those negatives into positives. You're right, I don't know where your daughter is today, but I do know that she loves you, and she said that we should go have coffee together. She paid for you to have coffee together with me today. I don't know this, but I don't know where your husband is. He's been dead for 6 years. I don't know where he is. I have not seen him today. Will you tell me about him, though? He must have been a loving husband. Turning those negatives into positives. And you know what? Don't ask why. They don't know. They don't know why. Unless you're quizzing about feelings or hunger or an emotion, a need, something like that. Are you looking for the bathroom? Because sometimes it's like, oh, yes. I am, and we're looking for that. So again, we're connecting. We're showing that we are understanding and that it's going to be okay. We're getting into their reality. Again, as soon as we start wrapping our mind around this, the sooner that our relationship and our ability to continue in that relationship is just going to be able to thrive and go as long as we can. Providing that reassurance that we hear, I understand, I'm validating and redirecting. Focus on the feelings, not the facts. Again, sometimes what they're saying doesn't always match what they're doing because of that ability to say. Again, that saying is not going to be able to maintain through this disease process, and so we're going to have to watch on what's happening. In the late stages, I'm just trying to think here. I have another example, but I don't want to waste everybody's time. But sometimes it's good to give examples because it gives you something to go with, what the heck, I'm going to do it. I'm going to tell you this one. This is another good one. And I think going back, let me go back a slide so that we can kind of see this. When I worked in the hospital setting. This was many, many moons ago. We had it was an inpatient geriatric psych unit. So the doors were locked because a lot of folks do tend to wander late stage. And so the doors are locked, and we were in a hospital setting, so the food was going to be coming through that door on the food cart soon. I knew we were getting closer to lunch. Well, of course, our patients would always hang out down by the locked door, because why not? So, and he was down there, two-fisting, pounding on the door, just agitated. You could just see him. And some of the nurses, they're like, who's going to do this one today? We're like, who's going to go address this? So I said, all right, I'm going to take a turn. So I go down, and one of the things we want to do is we want to join that reality. And we can talk about that in a little while, but it's important to do that because, again, this disease is impacting their ability. So what they say is what they say, and we just have to know that we have to join that reality as long as it is safe. And what can we do sometimes to modify that reality to keep them safe and to keep them, not in an agitated state. So he's climbing the walls, and I go down to him, and I come up to him right beside him, and I'm like, Jim, what's going on? You look upset. A little more than upset. He says, yeah. He says, I'm trying to get the hell out of here. And I looked at him and I said, me too. I want to get out of here. He goes, well, I said, so what have you been doing down here? He says, I'm looking for the key. And I said, well, I'll help you. I know there's not a key. But what did I do? I'm connecting with him. So we're looking for the key. And I said, well, so while we're talking, I'm making small talk with him while we're looking for a key. And I said, I said, lunch is coming soon. Yeah. He says, that's why I want to get out of here. I'm hungry. Okay. So I could have said, well, if you'd get away from the door, they're probably on the other side of the door with the lunch carts, but that wouldn't have worked very well. So I said, so we're looking for the key. I said, well, I'm hungry too. I said, I can't find a key. He says, I can't find the key. I said, let's go back down. I said, you see that down there by the nurse's station? There's a bunch of drawers and cupboards. I said, maybe we can go root around down there, see if we can find it down there. All right, let's go. He's crabbing the whole way down the hall. We get halfway down the hall. Sure enough, they come through the door like Scooby-Doo. He smells the food. By the time we get to where you are, Leanne, he's already turned and he's right heading into the activity room to eat his lunch. Now, again, did I get lucky? Yeah. When I went down to see him, could he have clobbered me? Maybe. But I connected, I assessed, I validated, I heard him, redirected, and it worked. Doesn't always happen that way, but that's another good example of at least trying, because those of us that, I think I'm hoping that through this program we can see how much what we do impacts what our loved ones do. And if we can change how we think, how we do, we can help slow this progression by decreasing use of pharmacological medications, because a lot of times we'll just throw, they're anxious. Let's throw an Ativan at them. If they're having hallucinations, well, maybe they're having hallucinations because they're hearing something and they don't understand that that's a leaf blower, not a World War II bomber. So it's not really a hallucination, it's not really a delusion, it's just that's their reality right now, because this disease has them in 44, not 2018. So in that late stage, Again, it's going to be very limited to what they're able to tell us. Unfortunately, this is what we see as the face of Alzheimer's. We need to change that. I want the face of Alzheimer's to start being this lady who's empowering herself because she knows there's changes happening. But unfortunately, you know, our late stage are those folks that are maybe in the nursing facilities that are not, you know, very mobile, but they can still do this. We always want to look for pain first. A lot of times when our loved ones, we have to look, they're not able to say, I had a fall last night that was unwitnessed after you left. When you thought I was safe in bed, I got up to go to the bathroom and I fell and I broke my arm last night. They can't tell you that. But what's going to happen? You go over the next morning to help mom get in the bathtub and she's got a contusion from her knee to her hip. Or occupational therapy showing up to do some rehab with mom, and when they go ahead and put her sweater on, she punches her. Well, guess why? You just made me lift my arm that has an unreported fracture that no one knew. Mom fell on that arm and she didn't know it. She couldn't tell me. She didn't remember that she had fallen. So we have to watch for pain. Urinary tract infections, those types of things. Using all those senses.
I know that my mom feels aggravated. I know that she feels alone. I know that she feels confused. And I know on any given day, I don't know if I've made it better for her. I try. In these later stages, I've come to recognize that being really aware of the 5 senses is really important. Touch seems to give her a great deal of comfort. I know when I come over, I'm going to brush her hair all the time. And my husband noted to me recently, he said, you know, you should see the look on your mom's face when you're brushing her hair. She's just happy. She's just happy. She doesn't say a lot. And I do it for a long period of time. I comb it, I braid it, I do funny things with it, but it just allows me to just be with her in a way that makes her feel comfortable.
I love that. When I did work at the nursing facility, I loved working side by side with our activities department because this is where you can really, really put together just solid programming and times and interactions for, you know, your loved ones. And so what we used to do is I would help them organize just little tactile boxes. And we would get like pieces of fur, we would get burlap, feed sacks for some of the old farmers, you know, this time of year with harvest. I would bring in fresh cut hay. You know, my husband's uncle was in there, and so it was kind of fun. He missed farming, so every time there would be a different cutting of hay, I'd be like, Uncle Dave, this was first hay cutting, and he would smell it, and then, like, you know, a couple weeks later, I would bring in the cuttings from the second hay, and it was just, you know, he could touch it, he could smell it, and it just was really nice. We all know how important animal therapy is. Children therapy is huge. The big fancy word for that is intergenerational programming, but bottom line, it's babies and kids. They love it. We can remember they still have vision. Many times why you will see the bright colors. We have adult mobiles that we can use that will still stimulate some type of thought-provoking, you know, activities with our loved ones. Music is huge. Music and memory. There are folks that will not move or blink until they hear Elvis. You know, the Beatles, whoever their music is. We're finding that they do better with the headsets when it's direct, not the CD player wherever, and then I think it's because it gets drowned out by any other stim that comes into the room. So if it's much more focused music, it seems to have a much better effect than that. But again, this is why we see, especially with hospice programs, the volunteers that come in and do the reading, how important that is just to still hear someone talking to them. Because unfortunately, one of the things I love to do when I partner with long-term care facilities is how to have a visit when you can't visit. And this is when we start noticing families pulling away because I don't know what to do with mom. She just sits there and looks at me. Right. She's looking, but we don't know what's going on. She's still in there. I used to have loved doing different cotton-soaked different flavors. Vanilla, lavender. I would have, I went to the dollar store and got all the spices and we would just sniff. We'd pass them around and we would talk. When we'd smell, then we reminisce. So we could smell the cinnamon. What did you like with cinnamon? I had one lady that I stuck the lemon under her nose and she never said a word. And all of a sudden her eyes popped open and she said, "Who's cleaning?" I thought, oh, that poor woman. I'm thinking lemon meringue pie and she's been cleaning. You can tell what well then, so you can see the other nice thing about that, if we can use that to stimulate appetite. So it will make your nursing friends happy. Yeah, it was great. We had an old bread machine that we never used. So I took it to the activity room. So you know what we did? I'd go in the morning, we'd get the bread started. And then you get these crusty old men. Man, I'm picking on you terrible, aren't I?
It's okay, I'm used to
You got broad shoulders? But you get these crusty old guys that would come in and they never wanted to come out of their rooms. Well, they have to engage and we have to get them to do something. Well, I'll tell you what, the best way to get some old men out of the room is to put some bread on. And next thing you know, here they come. What's going on down here? We're baking bread. Well, call me when it's done. Well, no, you're already here. Well, sit down. Let's talk about it. Well, when's the last time you had homemade bread? Oh, now we have a purposeful, meaningful, engaging activity. Ah. And then they get a little sample of it and it gets the taste buds going. And then they're still in the activity room and they're socializing and then they can stay there until lunch. It's brilliant. Oh. I didn't even, that's not my idea, it's just we're doing it. One time I was really nasty though, and I put mothballs in the bag. Boy, that gets some memories, doesn't it? Oh my gosh, Grandma's attic, the old camper that we only got out once a year. I mean, it's so fun, like what people did with mothballs. Taste. We have to be careful. Unfortunately, as this disease progresses, we do know it does start to affect those basic things such as swallowing. Be expecting a change in the thickness of our liquids. If your loved one by this stage starts coughing a little bit or choking or not being able to use a straw well, it's time to get them in for a swallowing evaluation because again, with this being a brain disorder, some of those things are going to start changing. So we're going to notice foods have to get a little bit easier and liquids have to get a little bit thicker. So somewhere on that continuum, those things change. And I like families to be aware of that. I want families to also be aware, that maybe your loved one eventually is going to need to have their liquid in a cup with handles. And is it a sippy cup? No, it's a lidded cup. Maybe mom wants to eat her peas as long as she can. We want to continue people to do things independently. Okay, well, if she's eating her peas and they keep falling off the side of the plate, maybe we can just put the peas in a bowl now. Who cares if they're not on a plate? Independent. We want to keep and there's so many ways. That's why we have our aging offices, folks that can help assess what are her needs. Maybe we can get some help to keep them independent as long as possible. So you guys are almost done having to listen to me. Yeah, we're wrapping up. I know, it's been a long hour, I'm sorry. We're connecting, we're joining their reality. Again, understanding what you can and cannot change. Picking our battles. I had a lady that her mom loved to go to McDonald's with her. That was her socialization, that was her outing. And the one day, she just was beside herself because her mom had been outside gardening, but she wouldn't change her clothes to go to McDonald's. And the daughter and her fought and fought and fought because she just wanted, her mom had been gardening. Be happy that your mom's outside doing something. So what if her knees were dirty, but that daughter did not want to take her out in public dressed like that? Go to Walmart, they're wearing their pajamas. I mean, come on. Demonstrate that respect and connecting through those feelings, and remember that they are an adult, and that's why we want to make those choices. That's why we want to read her the menu. That's why we want her to have a choice in what her clothing is. And that's okay, but eventually you could see how we move down through that. Eventually, mom being able to pick out her outfit's going to be a choice of 2, then maybe just 1, but affirming you look so pretty in this one outfit that we've chosen today. What are they doing? Trying to decode. It's up to us to figure out what's going on because they can't tell us anymore. So we have to figure out, are they really angry or are they frustrated? Are they really peeing their pants because they want to, or maybe they just don't remember how to use a button anymore? Remembering how our mood affects them.
Taking care of yourself while you care for somebody with the disease not only impacts your own health, but it really can impact the person with the disease. So for example, if you're not getting enough sleep, you might be easily irritated, which will then sort of spill over to your interactions with the person with the disease and maybe being short with them, which then might cause them to get frustrated. So it's not only important to take care of yourself for your own health, but really for you to really be a good caregiver.
2 things. Has anyone seen, they've ran it 2 times in a row on CBS. Has anyone seen the documentary? It was a CBS.
Dr. John LaPook,
Was it, well, I don't know.
where he covered a woman for 10 years.
Yes, did you see it was on 60 Minutes? Mm-hmm. It was, and really what they were doing was they were targeting a woman who had early onset, and her husband, who was a police officer, NYPD, in the early stages, and this journalist wanted to document her every year through the disease.
He's a doctor.
He's a doctor, okay? So he's watching her. The thing that was so poignant was I think he started off thinking, I'm going to watch her decline. But what was so poignant through this was watching her husband, the caregiver, decline. And how through the disease process, he starts off just like everybody else. I'm a fighter. She's never going into placement. We're gonna handle this. I don't need any help, blah, blah, blah. Halfway through the disease process, he became suicidal. Eventually, he recognized, then, not only that, once he got the help he needed, his physical health started to deteriorate to the point where he realized, I can't take care of her. And he did end up putting her in a facility because he just could not. And that's one of the big things that I always implore, I want families, is to never promise, because you never know what's going to happen. You know, if you're 80 pounds and your loved one is 260 pounds, it's not gonna work. Eventually we all need that help. We can't do it. So I wanted to share with you, if you haven't seen that, it's a 60 Minutes episode, look it up. It is, it's fascinating. But again, it's very poignant because it's caregiver focus. And that's what you are, all of you right here are caregivers. Whether you're doing direct care or, just being a good person that's attending, to your loved one. One thing I want to leave you is we have our help. Again, if you're struggling, you need that support, Mardana is here, the whole team is here. I love Meadville Active Aging. These ladies are superstars. So we do have those support groups. All of my information is here. Our helpline is 24 hours a day, answered by master level social workers. So even if you just want to brainstorm, or even if you just want to cry, they're there. The biggest thing that I want to leave you, again, because this disease is so complex and heartbreaking, the proof that we have that they are still in there, no matter what their ability is to communicate. This is the PET scan where we see that the electrons and all those neurons that are firing. And you can see this is our normal brain, and where the color is the most intense activity. And this area over here that's really dark red is judgment. So you can see how dark it is in someone like us. And if you peel this back, this is an Alzheimer's patient. Look at, it's gone. That same location in the brain. So there's that that's missing. This beef, look at how full our memory is. And here, again, it's gone. This area here in the middle, this is where our ability to hear and our emotions to love and cry and listen and connect. It's darker. It's still there. It's active. So keep connecting, keep communicating, keep finding ways, because they're there. So I want to leave you with that. Any questions, comments? Yes, absolutely. And feel free to come up and take anything you want. I'm here to answer questions individually. So thank you all for coming down and taking time out of your day. It's nice to see you all. Thank you.